weapon's not shooting? Why would it not be shooting, Private? Maybe because you have run out of ammo.
How did this happen? Just saw it.
You shot it all, Private.
Oh. Look, what's in front of you?
How many, Joe Sergeant?
You're over there, right?
Yes, Joe
Where'd
Sergeant.
your grenade go?
Over to the left, Joe Sergeant.
Drill Sergeant, I dropped my grenade somewhere over there.
That's twice. See what I'm talking about?
Guys, welcome to Better Bachelor. My name is Joker with a face for radio and a voice for print. Women overwhelmingly vote for the Democrat establishment, and a Democrat proposed that women should be signed up for selective service and to go off and get drafted for war, and so far it's passed the House. So if it does manage to pass the Senate here in the United States, men are going to be automatically registered for select service, which really they need to be anyway, or they get, when they get their driver's license, they're automatically signed up for it. So this would capture, maybe another 16 million young men that have not signed up for a driver's license, which ironically is mostly the men in cities, because they don't need driver's licenses in cities. So ironically, it'll capture more Democrat men than it would conservative men. And it's a Democrat that passed it forward. And they proposed that women now also need to be drafted or be prepared, signed up for selective service so they can be drafted too, brought forward by a Democrat. So, ladies, you get what you voted for. As you guys know, I've done many stories on this where military recruiting has hit crisis-level lows. Americans are urged to return to a society of service. And then, of course, on this particular article, they included 3 dudes dressed up like women. One is in the Navy, one is in the Army, and, of course, one is in the Air Force. And, of course, they're in positions of power in the military. So there's a whole lot of people that are not signing up for the military anymore. Well, this is from June 15th, so just yesterday. Automatic draft registration bill passes the House, a clear sign that we're getting ready for war. Now, this didn't make a lot of news, didn't make a lot of this portion of it, because most men are like, well, again, I kind of have to sign up anyway, so making it automatic versus having to come knock on a bunch of people's door, it doesn't really make a difference. And if you're a guy that has a driver's license, well, they already know about you, and they're going to come get you. That's why it's not a big deal. But the addition of the women to this, the Democrats were fine proposing it. Ironically, it was conservatives that said, no, we don't want this to happen because, of course, a U.S. Rep. Chip, let me bring this up a little bit so it's easier for you guys that want to read along. U.S. Chip Chrissy Houlihan's automatic draft registration bill has passed the House, shocking critics who believe America is preparing for war. The bill was included in this year's annual National Defense Authorization Act. As previously reported, Houlihan, a Democrat, proposed requiring all men who turn 18 to automatically be registered into the draft. This would differ from the current system in which 18 to 25-year-old men are required to volunteer or voluntarily registered with the selective service, again, when you get your driver's license. Now, it's not really a voluntary system. You have to do it, or you're gonna have problems at some point. While debating the proposal last month, she argued that an automatic draft sign-up would free up money to spend on readiness and towards mobilization versus education and advertising campaigns driven to register people for the draft according to task and purpose. Now, if we're going to be honest about this, no amount of education and advertising is going to get young men to sign up for, the service, especially if you're white and male, you've been called an existential threat by Joe Biden and this administration. So you're certainly not going to have him as your commander-in-chief. And on top of that, when you have a bunch of dudes in dresses that are in charge of everything, there's a whole lot of men that aren't going to go. So this is to basically bypass all of that and just have your names on a certificate. Ironically, if you're a member of the LGHD TV community and you say, I didn't register for the draft because I'm not a dude. I was born that way, but I'm actually a lady. That's not going to count. They're going to come get you because it's from databases. In other words, what you were born as. So it's a Democrat that's really kind of throwing all the LGHD-TV and the ladies under a bus. In fairness to her, only 84% of qualified men signed up for selective service in March 2022. Moreover, selective service was slated to spend $33 million this year alone to improve registration compliance rates. We really sort of saw this as a chance to both save government resources, save taxpayer dollars, and to help young men avoid the special challenges later in life that can come from not having registered, a congressional aide for Houlihan told Task and Purpose. Yes, those avoid those special challenges, such as being thrown in jail for not voluntarily signing up. And if you're just listening, there's a whole lot of air quotes in that one. They say fair enough, but it's also true that most U.S. states, the 4 territories, and Washington, D.C., already automatically register eligible men for selective service when they obtain a driver's license, a driver's permit, or other motor vehicle-related piece of identification. Again, most of the young men that do not have driver's licenses are probably, kind of the video game addicted, neckbeard, overweight guys that are in their basements that populate probably a large segment of the cities where you don't really own a car and don't need one to get around. I know plenty of people that lived in and around New York City that didn't have a car. Now, granted, they were younger because they never really left the city. Because once you're of age, you usually want a car to get out of the city and do things. But there's a whole lot of younger guys that are not getting their driver's licenses right now. They also say they can also face 5 years in prison or thousands of dollars in fines, according to Task and Purpose. With Houlihan's bill now passed, critics are crying foul, with former Rep. Dennis Kucinich leading the charge. He said there's no other conceivable reason to require more than 16 million American males to automatically be registered for the draft other than to prepare for a large-scale war, he wrote in a Substack post. One, he added, that appears to be looming on the horizon. So this is kind of the same thing from Fox News, House passes the bill. But this is a segment that's been being shared, and this is directly from the the United States Senate Committee on Armed Services. And this entails in Part 3, this says, Section 3, strengthening the joint force and defense workforce, authorize funding for support a 4.5% pay raise for military members and a 2% raise for the DoD civilian employees. Listen to this. Increases monthly basic pay for junior enlisted service members in the grades of E1 through E3. Those are the entry level. When I was in the military, if you signed up for your normal 4-year stint, you went in as a E1. If you signed up for a 6-year stint, you got E2. And if you signed up for a 6-year stint and you had I want to say a 2-year degree, you could sign up and you became an E3 upon entering the military. So it's a 19.5% pay raise for E1 to E3. I think that's great. We should be paying our armed services members because the pay sucked when I was in too. But that's an awful big raise. They're trying to entice people to sign up voluntarily, which they are not. Because again, when you call people that would normally sign up for military service, which is conservative, people that are proud of their country, people that want to do their duty and serve, their family served, those people aren't signing up anymore, especially now when you have the they-them pronoun classes going on when you first get into the military. So they say now amends the Military Selective Service Act to require the registration of women for selective service. And that's what a lot of people are freaking out about. But again, ironically, it's the conservatives, the conservative men, that are the ones that are the most, we're not sending our daughters off to war. Chip Roy from Texas and Mike Lee slammed part of Senate's version of the NDAA that would have women register for the draft. Mike Lee from Utah and Chip Lee from Texas slammed a part of the U.S. Senate Armed Services Committee version of the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2025 that would have women register for the draft. On page 3, I read that part just out. Chip Roy said, you can go straight to hell. He said on that over my dead body. Lee shared the same sentiment on social media. We will not draft women, Lee wrote on X. I'm with Chip Roy. This will happen over my dead body. The National Defense Authorization Act also includes a 4.5% raise for military members. I already read that part. And the bill was approved by the committee of a vote of 22-3. And again, it's already passed the House. And here, the House passes pivotal defense bill with culture war amendments targeting baby deletion and climate policies. So here again, you've got Democrats that propose this bill. You've got the Republicans, conservatives, saying, no, we don't want to send women. The Democrats are saying, well, it's already passed the House, and it might fail the Senate. There is a saving grace. It might fail the Senate, and it may not get passed. The reason it may fail in the Senate is because it takes out extra money for baby deletion. It doesn't allow the LGHD TV to get free surgeries, and it takes out some of the ridiculous climate policies. So the saving grace may be these gotchas that are in there so women don't have to register. Now, if they can pass it with some of these stupid contingencies or poison pills, as they call them, in it, it may still get passed, and then women will be signing up for the draft, ironically. In Washington, the GOP-controlled House of Representatives on Friday passed an annual defense policy. We've already read similar stuff. It passed 217 to 199. One of the most high-profile and divisive amendments Republicans added to the legislation was one from Representative Beth Van Duyn, a representative from Texas, which would reel back a 2022 rule from the Pentagon that reimburses out-of-state travel for service members seeking baby deletion. Other provisions would target the Biden administration's climate initiatives, along with diversity, equity, and inclusion programs in the federal government. These efforts and other amendments are dead on arrival in the Democratic-controlled Senate, which is working on its own version of the mandatory defense bill that is expected to include fewer partisan priorities. See, they say it to include fewer partisan priorities, but DEI and free baby deletion, if women want to travel to different states, and climate initiatives, those are partisan priorities. But you see, this is MSNBC. So anything that's not the way the Democrats want it, well, that's partisan. Anything that is what the Democrats want, well, that's perfectly fine. And so this particular bill as written may be DOA. However, that doesn't mean that they're not going to put some amendments on it, send it back to the House and have it go through. And the Democrats, with all their equality and everything else, seem perfectly fine to have women signing up to go off and march into war. So the saving grace for the women, ironically, the saving grace for the women is probably the conservative men. How do you like that? Even sometimes against their own best interest, conservative men are looking out for the ladies, even when the ladies hate them, and still vote against them every chance they get. So there's a good chance that when and if, and likely when, something breaks out, the ladies are going to be lacing up and marching right off to war with the rest of us. I don't know about you. I think that puts them in danger and at risk. But if I'm to be honest, I think it also puts the qualified real men at risk. But so does having people that are a little dimmer than usual and overweight and are timid and don't really care about protecting the country and don't feel like they need to do their service and have no pride in our country. That's going to put a lot of people at risk as well. So I can tell you, for me personally, I'm way out of the draft age. But if I was a young guy right now that was in the age range of the draft, excuse me, I hit the mute button on the wrong part of my soundboard. I apologize for that. If I were getting sucked in and I was going to be a part of this draft, I'll tell you right now, I wouldn't go. I'm not going to be going to war with a bunch of other people that will not have my six, that don't want to be there, that don't care about our country, that don't feel that there's a good reason for us to be in this conflict. It's not protecting democracy or protecting our country, or it's a money grab. Lindsey Graham and some of these others have come out directly said, hey, they got a lot of really good resources we don't want China and Russia to have, so we need to back Ukraine. Well, if that's where we're headed, are you willing to go off and get ended in a war over some cobalt in the ground, of which you will never see a penny of when it's mined out of the dirt? My answer to that would be no. And if enough young people say, no, I'm not going, there's nothing they can do. Now, if 1% of young men don't go, there's probably something they could do. But that'd still be, 3-4 million young men. But if 10 or 20 or 30% of young people just say, no, we're not going to go off and fight these battles for you anymore, old man, so you can get rich and dip into the coffers of the United States. If that happened, that'd be no choice. They can't force you to go off and march into war. And because of the way they've treated so many young people and so many people of the demographic that would be proud of the country and that would happily serve, because of the way they've been treated, those people won't go either. Thus, you've got a fighting force that will not go to fight. That's why I think things are in a very bad shape. But it's partially because of the demoralization that TikTok and our culture has had on young people that we've put ourselves in this position. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I don't think women are going to go marching off. And I think if the United States gets into something, I don't think they're going to be able to make a lot of young men, they're not going to be able to force them to go, because there's a lot of young men that just won't go anymore. And I can't say as I blame them, because it's certainly not for the right causes. Guys, if you like my work, make sure to join me on betterbachelor.locals.com. Great community of guys. Please become a supporter today. It's $5 a month. It's a great way to support my independent journalism and allows me to do other topics that YouTube doesn't like. We'll leave it there. I'll see you in the next one.